In this video, I'm going to be ranking all the live-action Star Wars movies. Now, before we get into this, let me preface this by saying I am a casual Star Wars fan, so if you're a diehard and you're watching this, please don't come for me in the comments if you disagree. But without further ado, guys, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and let's do this thing. Starting things off at number 11 is The Phantom Menace. This movie was so underwhelming. Now, coming off the original trilogy, I definitely expected something better. But the problem with this movie is it just didn't feel like a Star Wars film. We really dove deep into the politics side of this Star Wars universe, and it just made the story confusing and downright boring at times for me. Now, it was cool to see a younger Anakin and an Obi-Wan trained by his master Qui-Gon, but overall, this movie just wasn't it. Now, there was one thing I did like about this movie, and that was Darth Maul. I only wish we just got to see more of him. Coming in at number 10 is Attack of the Clones. This movie was a little better than The Phantom Menace, and I genuinely enjoyed some parts of it. I really liked how we got to see the first signs of Anakin turning to the dark side. I really liked the action, even though they could have pulled back on the CGI a little bit. This is one of those cases where just because you have it doesn't really mean you should use it. However, the dialogue in this movie was a little rough. That's kind of a running theme with all the prequel movies. They aren't known to have the best dialogue, but also this movie did have quite a bit going on, and the first 2/3 of this movie wasn't the best, but the third act I highly enjoyed. Next up at number 9, I have The Rise of Skywalker. In my opinion, this is probably the biggest disappointment out of all the Star Wars movies. And I really wanted this movie to be good, but it just didn't deliver, and that's sad because I really enjoyed the first 2 movies in this trilogy. I didn't feel like they needed to bring back Palpatine as the villain in this movie, and it also felt like they just didn't know what to do with some of the characters in this movie, aka Finn. Yeah, he kind of got screwed over in this movie, and honestly just got screwed over in the whole sequel trilogy, which is kind of sad because he was personally one of my favorite characters, and honestly one of the best characters in this whole trilogy. Now, there were some pretty cool visuals in this movie, but overall this thing just felt forced for me, especially that kiss. And don't even get me started on the whole Rey Skywalker thing, because I'm a casual fan, and even I know that it's Rey Palpatine. Coming in at number 8 is Solo. Honestly, this movie is just fun. It doesn't do anything necessarily special, but it's still a very enjoyable watch. I liked all the characters in this movie as I thought they had pretty good banter and chemistry, but my favorite part was seeing Donald Glover as Lando. I just think he knocked it out of the park, and I had a blast watching him in this movie. This film was safe, simple, and it had some good action, and it's honestly just one of those movies you can turn on if you want to be entertained. Coming in at number 7 is Return of the Jedi. I thought this was a good ending to the original trilogy. Although in my opinion, I don't think it's as strong as the previous 2, it still holds its own very well. The best part of this movie for me was the emotion between Vader and Luke. It just made the final battle that much better. Now, this whole sequence was just awesome. We got to see Luke fight off Palpatine's mind games as he refused to join the dark side. Now, in terms of character development for Luke, I thought this was great because throughout this OG trilogy, we really see him struggle with controlling his emotions, and in this moment, he refuses to turn to the dark side, showing that he has sort of gained some control over those emotions. Then we got to see Vader turn on Palpatine in order to save his son, and this was just perfect because this allowed Anakin to redeem himself in a sort of way. On top of that, this movie just had lots of cool battle sequences, and overall, as I said before, just wrapped up that original trilogy really well. At number 6 is The Last Jedi. This is one of those movies where I just don't understand the hate. I really like this movie, and that might be because I'm a casual fan, but deep down, I truly think this is a good movie. I really enjoyed Luke's character arc in this movie as we saw that he was haunted by his past mistakes, which led to the creation of Kylo Ren. Then we see later that he finds peace and finally moves past those mistakes and dies after he redeems himself in a battle which I thought was really cool in my opinion. The emotion between him, Kylo, and Rey was just awesome. And visually, this is one of the best Star Wars movies out there. I thought the story was great throughout the film, but that third act was just perfect in my opinion. Coming in at number 5 is Rogue One. Now, this is one of those movies I didn't know I needed. It was a simple standalone Star Wars film that actually played a big role in the events of A New Hope. I loved the new characters and the story. This movie felt fresh as it didn't necessarily focus on the Skywalkers. It was a grounded story with great action that was honestly just really fun to watch, and it made me appreciate A New Hope even more. Coming in at number 4 is The Force Awakens. This movie was just great all around. We got tons of new characters which were awesome as this was just an action-packed adventure all the way through. I really liked Kylo Ren in this as we saw him struggle with trying to live up to Darth Vader and how his relationship with his father affects him. Now, it was sad to see Han die, but I think it added a lot to Kylo, aka Ben's character in the end. Rey was also great, and it was cool to see her come into her power and realize how to use the Force, which added some mystery to who she was and where she came from. My only gripe with this movie, and it's not really even with this movie, is that they set up Finn to be a Jedi and they never paid it off. This movie obviously had great action, and it was fun to see some of the old characters from the OG trilogy interact with these new characters now. Kicking off the top 3 is Revenge of the Sith. This is easily the best movie in the prequel trilogy. We got to see Anakin struggle with joining the dark side, and the build up to Anakin eventually falling to the dark side was just amazing. Seeing Anakin slowly lose his faith in the Jedi and then get manipulated by Palpatine to join the dark side, I thought was great. And even though we knew he was eventually gonna fall, it was somehow still shocking to me when he did. The final battle between him and Obi-Wan was iconic, and the build up to that I also thought was very well done. Add Order 66 on top of that, and yes, it makes up for all the bad dialogue in this movie. Coming in at number 2 is A New Hope. This movie was just ahead of its time. Not only is the story great, but the visual effects are amazing, and the fact that they still hold up today is crazy. We get introduced to new lovable characters like Luke, Leia, Han, and Chewbacca, and honestly, as a group, it was fun to see them interact, and I thought they were built up very, very well. We also get the first appearance of what I think is the greatest villain of all time in Darth Vader. Now, at the time, we thought that Darth Vader had killed Luke's father, and I guess in a way he technically did, but I thought that made the story a little bit more personal for Luke, and I really enjoyed that. This movie had tremendous world building, and that battle at the end of the movie where they went to go destroy the Death Star had absolutely no business looking and being that good. But all in all, this movie created a whole fandom and 100% deserves its flowers. And coming in at number 1 is none other than The Empire Strikes Back. In my opinion, there is no question that this is the best Star Wars movie. This obviously has one of the best plot twists of all time, and the action and visuals were once again great. But what made this movie special was the emotion it had between Vader and Luke. Everything leading up to the battle with Darth Vader was just executed beautifully, because Luke essentially lost the battle with Vader because he wasn't ready and acted out of emotion and left his training to go save his friends. Now, I thought this was a great bit of storytelling because we've seen Luke struggle with his anger and emotions throughout the movie, and it eventually led him to losing the final battle in the end. There's so much more good to take out of this movie, but that essentially is why it's my number 1. But that is my ranking of all the Star Wars movies. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching this video all the way through. Be sure to let me know some of your favorite Star Wars movies in the comments, and as always, like, subscribe, comment, get your Eazy Apparel at shop easyapparel.com, and God bless. I'll see you later, guys.